Many of you are surely wondering why I have summoned you at this hour.
It's time for the big interview.
All right, boys, prepare to be dazzled.
That's right, it's big. It's the big names, the big news, the biggest stories. It's the next big thing. What's the big deal? It's the big interview.
What's going on here? This is big news. We need coverage of this.
MoneyLife brings you the big thinkers, the top experts, the brightest minds. With the big interview, you can stay informed about all the financial matters that are important to you, all in one big package.
Oh boy, I've never gotten a package this big. I've always wanted to have a huge package.
Did my taxes pay for this?
The big interview. Sit down, strap yourself in, and get ready to learn.
Your mind is beginning to work. It's entirely due to my influence, of course. You mustn't take any credit.
Well, today, your mind is going to be working around a subject that a lot of my audience is interested in because I get asked about this all the time. So I was very excited when I saw my guest's book. My guest is Ryan Mallory. He is a co-founder of SharePlanner. It's at SharePlanner on Twitter. It's SharePlanner.com. But he is now the author of a book called The Part-Time Trader, Trading Stocks as a Part-Time Venture. Now, this is part of Wiley's trading series. That means not quite that it's a professional book, but it is definitely not necessarily, trading for dummies or something along those lines. And that's important to me because my audience isn't really looking for, teach me how to do it on a bad basis. They're looking for, can I really do this? And this book, I really liked it because I get people asking all the time, I want to be a trader. I want to do a little bit of trading around everything else I do. How do I get it done? This book is your answer. If you want more information, you can get it at SharePlanner.com. Ryan Mallory, welcome to MoneyLife.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It is the question I get asked a lot when it comes to trading by my audience, because my audience all has day jobs, is how do you work trading around the rest of your life? And even in your book, where you sort of talk about it as a part-time venture, a venture makes it seem like, hey, you're going into business for yourself. Does somebody have to think of it that way and say, look, even if all you want to do is a little trading on the side, think of it, set it up, build it like a business?
Well, I definitely think that it has to be based on priority. Obviously, if you're a part-time trader, you still need a full-time job. So you can't look at it as being your sole passion or your top priority. You have to look at it as being a supplement to your full-time job. Now, when I started off in corporate America, I became very dissatisfied with my job rather quickly, as you can read in the book. But I basically decided I needed to find something that I was truly passionate about. And I had to pass the trading stocks more from an investment standpoint, but I started getting into the trading side of it and became rather good at it. But that came also with a lot of successes and failures, struggles and strategies that ultimately did work for me, but it took a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error. So the key is that the full-time job still has to be looked at as part of your trading strategy, and that is you still have to perform with your responsibilities and do a good job at that, because if you don't have a job, you're not, there's no point of you trying to trade part-time.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is when you start talking about, hey, you're going to trade part-time and you're going to go through trial and error. For some people, it's error and stop. It's not let me keep trying it and getting through the errors. How many of the methods that you went through did you say, you know what, that might work great for the guy who wants to make it a full-time job, but for me, if you're going to be a part-timer, there's really only these limited ways so that we can maybe avoid some of those errors?
Well, I'll tell you this. I pretty much traded every type of vehicle you could, on the job. And for instance, one of them was trading futures, and it was a very fast day trading type of strategy. Well, the strategy was actually working great for me. But, I had all these alerts going off in the office, and, people could hear them, and people could, sort of drawing attention to myself. And I had to give it up because I knew, if I keep on down this path, it's probably going to get me in trouble. So, I cut that out, and I went back to more of a simplistic swing trading strategy, which I still employ today. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some strategies that work for day traders, but that as a full-time occupation, but not necessarily as a part-time endeavor. So for me, it's really looking at what are your job requirements, and basically saying, okay, if you're answering 911 calls, for instance, this is maybe an extreme example, but if you're answering 911 calls, you can't necessarily go day trading while you're constantly picking up phone calls all the time. You're going to have a much broader time frame for your trading, and it has to be a little bit more automated rather than constantly pulling the trigger on alerts.
Well, I always tell the story of how when the financial crisis of 2008 blew up, MarketWatch was doing a stock competition, and I hate these things and I don't do them normally, but here I am, a MarketWatch columnist, and they basically said, oh, you've got to be participating. And so I was in something that was, leveraged ETF up the financials, and I was killing it. I was winning the whole thing. And on the morning that everything broke and Lehman went bankrupt and everything was about to go to heck in a handcart, I tried to make a sale, and for whatever reason, the transaction couldn't go through. And then my day job interfered. And by the time I got back to it, I was dead last and never getting out of that hole. So, I've lived it as well. But for folks who are looking at doing this, when we talk about part-time, I mean, you talk about being a swing trader. Folks don't really understand it. You can come up with strategies that are really an hour a day, 90 minutes a day, 3 hours a day, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the big hangups for traders are, they get caught up on that home run stock. They don't look at it as an opportunity to consistently profit from the market. Maybe it's only 1% to 2% gains here, maybe 4 or 5% gains there, while keeping the risk tight. Instead, they like to buy and then basically just hope for that big stock, to go up 1,000% or something, and that's never going to happen for them. And in the process, they lose a lot of capital. And that's the emotions. Especially working as a full-time job, if you don't harness the emotions, they can really bite you bad, because there's nothing worse than when you're trading part-time to having a trade that involves you emotionally to where you're upset and everything else, because guess what? Your job's going to suffer as a result of that. So you have to trade in such a manner that the trades are much more automated in terms of you're not having to sit there and ponder, do I get in, do I get out? No, beforehand, this is my stop, this is my target, this is where I'm going to get in, this is where I'm going to get out. If it goes against me, I know I'm going to cut my losses right there.
My guest here on Money Life is Ryan Mallory. His book, The Part-Time Trader, Trading Stocks as a Part-Time Venture. You use the term swing trading, and I know what swing trading is, but explain how you came to swing trading and how it works for you.
Well, for me, it's positions that I'm going to hold for a few days up to a couple weeks. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes I get a really good run on a trade. I had one in Amazon earlier this year that lasted me for over a month. It wasn't a huge gainer, but it was one that just was worth staying in the whole time. But for me, it's that kind of a time frame. It worked well for me because for day trading, I tend to, if I'm focusing solely on day trading, I'm going to overtrade my portfolio. And it's just, you get down and you feel like you have to, place 10 more trades to try and get back up and everything else. So for me, day trading, it just doesn't work for me. But swing trading does. It allows me to take a lot of the emotions out of the trade. It allows me to think through my strategies, allows me to take the time to put together a risk plan for every one of my trades that I make, without having to respond just because an alert goes off on my computer and I have to all of a sudden scramble around like Chicken Little trying to get that trade on it at the best price possible.
When you talk about folks doing this and you talk about trial and error, lots of people trade dummy trades, things along those lines with various software programs, etc. How much of this is go ahead and try this with small amounts of money? How much of this is trade dummy accounts? How much of this is find a software that you really think you can rely on? How much of this is do it yourself?
Well, if you do the paper trading at first, you can get a lot of confidence from paper trading simply because there's no emotions in the paper trading because there's nothing really at stake. So when you're doing all the paper trading, you're going to build up this confidence. And then when you go live trading your real money, you're going to be hit with a harsh reality because those emotions that weren't there before and the fear and the greed and all of that, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. So what I tell people, in their trading, I simply tell them you need to trade with a dollar amount that doesn't seem important to you. Now that's always hard to find because I personally don't like to lose, a $10 bet, but it has to be to an amount that you can manage your positions without going bonkers on, 4 or 5 positions going against you or anything else. And I had those kinds of experiences where I traded far too much capital. And really the trading, in my opinion, it's less about the stock picks and more about how you manage the trade. Everybody gets caught up into I need a good stock pick. I need something that's going to, let me hit it big on this next trade. And really, it's not about that. I personally have come to believe in my own experience that 90% of trading all has to do with ourselves and how we manage a trade from a risk standpoint. I've seen the best trade setups go sour and the worst looking trade setups go very well. So the trade setup itself is just an additional edge, a way of developing a probability of profiting from that trade. While all along, you can have the greatest trade setup, and if you don't manage the trade and respect the risk, you're likely to fail over the long term.
And that is why folks can really benefit from your experiences and your book. The book is The Part-Time Trader. Trading stocks is a part-time venture, part of the Wiley Trading Series. The author, Ryan Mallory, he is co-founder of SharePlanner.com. SharePlanner.com, like it sounds, on Twitter @SharePlanner. Ryan Mallory, thanks so much for joining me on Money Life.
Thanks for having me.
There is much more to go on today's show, and you do not want to miss a minute. So stick around. Money Life will be right back.